Hey, She Slayers, and welcome to another episode of She Slays the Day podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauryn Brunswick. And today we're talking about leadership. So I have on Jennylynde Renteria-Packham, and she has a background in leadership in like more corporate hospital structures. And it is wild to hear just how much more support leadership gets in these bigger corporations. And then we as like solopreneurs or like clinic owners are wondering why we feel so overwhelmed and like all this, because like we didn't get any leadership training. The more I learn about leadership, you guys, the more I'm like, oh, damn. Like we're just like sitting on our laurels thinking that default leadership is going to rise to the surface when it requires so much work and training. And we're already, we're training on marketing and we're training on being a good doctor and we're training on this and we're training on that. And it's like, and now I just need to train on like, there's the hard skills of running a business. And then there's the soft skills. And like, we need both. But I think a lot of us can see the direct deliverables between learning the hard skills. Like we can see like, oh, if I learn how to close a care plan, I can directly see how that's going to put money into my pocket, how to grow my business. But when you look at like, what should your, training and onboarding program be and how you're responding to things when the ball gets dropped, all of that, you're like, I don't have mental capacity for that. So like, I hear you, you're going to hear my internal struggle. I mean, 15 years, in practice, and I am such a different leader, and it has happened painstakingly slow over time. Should I have done it faster earlier? Of course, I should have. But listen, I was like a lot of you are like, listen, I'm focusing on making that money. I want that money. So don't judge me as I'm vulnerable and honest about my journey as a shitty leader to trying to become a less shitty leader. In my interview with Jennylynde. Before we jump in to our prayer, our influential doctor bootcamp is officially live. So you can register for that now. We will have the link below. It is going to be running the week of April 12th through 19th. So how it's going to work is there's a combination of a Facebook group where I'm going to be going live, doing Q&As, answering questions. And then there's going to be 3 core Zoom trainings, 60-minute Zoom trainings. There's absolutely going to be replays available for you. This is the last time that I am going to be hosting a bootcamp specific to building a personal brand. Last time. Okay. So this is actually the last time that our personal brand 90-day program is going to be available. They are both getting sunset. So if you are wanting to learn what I have to teach as it pertains to building a personal brand, I highly recommend you attend the $47 boot camp. We did this boot camp. It was different information. So it's going to be, if you did the boot camp last time, it's going to be different. And so like, I highly recommend doing it again. But like, this is full of tactical stuff. Like this is not a free boot camp because it should literally be probably, oh gosh, somewhere between $500 and $1,000. Like, I'd probably realistically sell it as like a $497 course, $497 course, the amount of information that you are getting in this week. So book it, sign up. We'll drop the link below for you. Like I said, last round. So if you're sitting on the fence, get off the fence. So let's listen or hear about Jennylynde, and then we'll pray. So Jennylynde Renteria-Packham is a professional coach and registered nurse with decades of experience in healthcare, executive leadership, quality improvement, and organizational development. As the founders of Courage, or as the founder of Courage Coaching, she supports leaders and professionals who want greater clarity, accountability, and alignment in both their personal and professional lives. Her work often centers on helping her clients identify the internal barriers that hold them back, including negative self-talk and unhelpful narratives, and replacing them with intentional awareness and action. You will hear her firsthand kind of do that with me. Like everything I swear, sometimes I have a podcast just because it's like free therapy. So let's pray. Dear God, we are doing our damn best over here. Like, oh, we really, really are. Thank you so much for putting us in a position to lead people. That is such a place of honor to be. And some of us are like, well, I'm not a leader yet because I'm just alone. It's just me in my clinic, or I'm not even the owner. You are leading. Like, you are leading your family. You are leading your coworkers, even if you're not signing their payroll. You're even leading your friends. The stats that come out on the 5 people around you. It's like, how are you showing your friends what it means to live a normal life, right? Like, what does that look like? Are you leading from health, leading from self-growth? How are we showing our kids that? How are we showing our spouse? So God, just thank you so much for the honor of being a leader, because we know that it comes with a lot of weight and it can seemingly feel burdenous. But it truly is a place of just absolute honor, I guess, from you to be able to impact and influence other people's lives through our example. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay, without further ado, here is my conversation with Jennylynde Renteria-Packham. Enjoy. Okay, well, Jennylynde, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you.
I'm so glad to be here.
Um, okay, so you have worked in health with like healthcare executives and leaders for decades. How did you kind of give me just the quick summary of how you started in healthcare to ended up working with executives in healthcare?
Absolutely. I was a nursing assistant to a nurse, really loved that growth process of coming up within and getting hired within. And so quickly rose to being a director of nursing, and therefore being at that executive level pretty quickly early in my career, and found that I loved it. I love not only getting to see all aspects of the business, which you get to do when you're in that level, you don't get to do as a floor nurse necessarily, and then getting to mentor others to their best level of success. That's the piece for me that I was very passionate about in my leadership career. So continuing on from director of nursing to director of quality in a couple different settings, one being a very large retirement setting, so all levels of care, really that face to the external, all of those folks who are helping us out. When they helping us out is the attitude I have, right? When regulatory agencies come in, they're really there to make sure we're doing a good job for our patients and hopefully sharing some knowledge that they have, right? Helping us out, making our business better. And it just led me to a place where recognizing that sometimes other executives didn't have that. They didn't have that knowledge and experience or
Yeah,
comfort level with that.
right.
But I had found that it served me really well when I welcomed a regulatory body in to say, what are you seeing? What can we do better? We're probably not doing something perfectly. Let's be open to that feedback because those folks see everything. And so it just led me to a place of being able to mentor peers and even mentor up into other leadership to say, hey, this is something that we could approach differently, which then leads into what else can we approach differently? What else can we make better? How do we make things a little bit easier for folks? Because in this day and age, nobody's got more budget funds. Nobody's got enough staff. We need to streamline as much as possible. So how do we do that in a way that feels good and feels empowering to our team? And really approaching it with that mindset of if we're leading well, then everybody that reports to us feels better about their job, and then they take better care of clients, whether that client is a walk-in outpatient client or an inpatient in a bed patient client. There are still people that are there for our services in some way, And the best way to give them great services is to have really great people taking care of them, right? And the way we want to do that is by being great leaders that attract to us those wonderful people we want on our team.
So, like, I've never worked in a hospital. Most of my audience has never worked in a hospital. And I sometimes will throw like shade in a not in a bad way. Like I don't mean to be. There's lots of shade I throw at healthcare, but not in this sense of just like, just us private practice docs. So whether you're a chiropractor, dentist, that's a combination of veterinary and dentist, physical therapist, like if you're in private practice, everything you just said is just like, wow, we don't have any of that bureaucracy. It is just me and I'm the CEO and nobody is making sure that I am a good leader. But I'm hearing lots of podcasts and reading books and realizing I'm a terrible leader. And so it's funny / sad when I hear you and I'm like, wow, like there's a lot of crap you have to put up with in the hospital, but like to have those like layers of like people and regulatory bodies that are coming in and being like, hey, this is how you lead people. Or us private practice docs are just like flying by the seat of our pants, being like, oh, okay, well, I'm learning today. So in your experience, if you could like sum up years and years of working with, high achieving healthcare professionals, helping them step into leadership, and you are talking to a bunch of healthcare leaders that have no leadership, like no training. We got our degree, started a business, but now we're leading a team and we're figuring it out on the fly. Like, what are some of the core messaging that you think is like, oh, so nobody's telling you about this? Like, has anybody helped you figure out this? Like, what are some of the lessons that you've learned that like we probably need to hear?
Ooh, Lauren, brilliant question. That is fantastic. Because there are things that apply regardless of setting, right?
Yes.
And
Like wanting your associate doc. So like a lot of us have associate doctors and we feel this thing of like, well, the patient always wants to see us. And so it's like, it's like, how do we empower our doctors to deliver the care that like comes through us more naturally or, whatever.
right, absolutely. I think there's a couple pieces there that independent practice may not have picked up on the fly. Because frankly, although I talk about it, it's because of decades of experience doing it and working with people. It's not necessarily something I was formally taught. And so it's not a fault, right? It's not a bad thing that as you come up through private practice, that you haven't necessarily had the opportunity to learn those things on the fly. That's just the way that path happens, right? So I think the first thing is giving yourself a little grace. Like, it's okay that your path didn't force you to learn those things on the fly. Now you're recognizing you have them, which leads to the second piece of self-awareness, understanding that as a leader, whether or not we want it as a private practice head of the clinic, people are watching you because you're the leader. They're going to want to see what you do. And that's the example that they'll have for how to act. So having the self-awareness to know, oh, I can't be frustrated in this moment, right? I need to go find a private place to be frustrated with this negative interaction because otherwise folks are watching me. Or how can I lend my influence, as it were, as the primary provider to talk up my other providers, to kind of pass on that good will that I've earned with this patient so that they can trust another provider when I'm not here. Because part of that whole process is that I can take a day away, right? I can be away. I know my patients are still getting cared for properly and everything is going to be great. So leveraging the influence we have, I think, in those leadership roles, recognizing it, right? Self-awareness, and then being willing to leverage the influence we have as the leader to be able to say to a patient, oh my gosh, have you met, Dr. Jones yet that I've brought on? Because wow, was I impressed with what they bring to the table. I think you're really going to like them if you ever have the opportunity. Again, so speaking positive over others in our setting, as well as being willing to hear when things aren't so positive. right? Whether that's another provider or one of our support staff, being able and willing to address when there is a conflict that comes up and recognizing conflict as an opportunity for improvement, not necessarily something that we have to be afraid of or avoidant of. Because again, as leaders, I don't think we have that luxury to avoid conflict, right?
No, it's really exhausting. When you write down, like, I don't think anybody that very few people anyways, we put intention into, like, okay, we're going to go into healthcare, so I need to focus on what the patient needs. And like and that means in communication, like, you need to be able to communicate complex things, and you're like going patient to patient to patient, and then you can't be like your super authentic self. Like, I can't drop an F-bomb in front of a patient, right? Like, I can't talk to a patient the way I would my husband about it. Well, I shouldn't talk to anybody the way about their pain the way I do to my husband, because I don't think, just shut up, you haven't iced it yet. Although there would be a part of me that would love to be able to be like, have you iced it like I told you? No? Then stop nagging me. Anyways, I can't do
Maybe.
that. I have to be like, remember, Mrs. Jones, have you tried the ice yet? So we're just like masking all day with patients.
Right.
And then we can't do that mask to our employees. So now
Correct.
we have to, like, put on this different mask to employees. And then we get home and it's just like, you're exhausted. So, like, what is like is there a limiting belief that I'm saying here? Is there a narrative that you've seen continued where you're like, yeah, I see this a lot, but, like, it just feels like it's just a lot of pressure of, like,
It
when
is.
do I get to be me? I didn't realize that signing up for all of this was going to just feel like so much pressure to perform for everybody else.
Mm, that is an amazing observation. You are
Thanks. I've gone
correct.
to a lot of therapy.
Yeah. It
I
is.
actually am supposedly supposed to be helping doctors figure this shit out. So it's on me. It's on me to do the work, Jenny
I
Lynn.
think everyone should be assigned a therapist at birth.
Yeah.
And every couple should get a couples therapist when they get, into a serious relationship, because it's so helpful to have that external party looking at how we're interacting with the world and communicating. So I love it. Um, the piece where I was going to maybe question if we were in a
Yeah.
coaching
Yeah.
relationship, right?
Let's do
The
it.
question I might have back is, why do you have to mask for staff? And is there a difference between masking and a boundary?
Mm. Well, I think that the masking for staff is like, for example, if we talked at the meeting about a new SOP of how we're going to handle something, and then a week later, I find out that that SOP has not been happening, and we've had three scenarios that and an employee doesn't go like, oh my gosh, doesn't take ownership of, like, I'm so sorry, you're right, I will fix this. And they're just kind of like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Like, what I want to do is um is to be mad. What I want to do is be like that alpha male CEO that you see on TV that's like, stop wasting my time. Like, do your fucking job. Like, I talked about this. What you need me to, like, write it out for you? So that's what, like, wants to come out. And it's like, okay, well, we can't do that. So, and and it doesn't deserve that level. It's not like anybody's life was on the line there with a denied credit card or like, um, and so it's just like, it's the intention. It's having to move through or employee interaction with such grace of, like, I hear you. And everything is like about what they need. And I get it. I'm not I'm not complaining necessarily. It's just kind of like coming from this like burnt out CEO model. It's like, who's asking what I need? Like, it's just like they need me to present the information differently. Oh, well, maybe we didn't write it down. Maybe we didn't remind them of that. Oh, maybe we didn't role play. Like, fuck, it's so much.
Right. Come on. Who has time for this? We got patients to see. Let's go.
Yeah.
Get it together,
Mhm.
team. I feel you. Oh, I feel that in my soul. I
So,
too
like,
have had
where do
that.
you feel like masking versus boundary is? Because to
Well,
me, I'm like, I'm masking because I can't yell at them because that's not,
yes.
I don't want to be that person, but that's what is coming out.
Right. And some of that might be just the difference between how we want to act in our personal lives. I too come from a
But I wouldn't
family
do that to
that,
my kid or husband either. My kid or husband might get that, and then I would like eat dirt afterwards and be like, hey,
right. So sorry, didn't mean
mom,
to.
lost her cool. You did not deserve that. Mm, okay.
So that maybe is where I'm questioning the masking pieces. It's not necessarily that we are masking, but rather understanding that that level of self-awareness and emotional regulation does take a lot of effort, regardless of if it's for our work team or our home team, as it were, whoever we're interacting with socially. I too come from a place of like sometimes I just want to swear to get it out and then it'll be over and it'll be fine and I don't hold a grudge well, so I'll forget about it. And nobody wants to hear that, right? Like nobody wants to hear me talking 100 miles an hour and swearing half the time. So I feel you on that. And where I was going with boundaries was more sometimes that piece of they don't get to know us that way with staff, with our team, right? Because you might go home to a spouse and be really hot and say all kinds of things. You might, oh, I had this terrible interview with Jennylynde today. She was the worst guest ever, and swear all about it. And that belongs maybe at home with a spouse who can hear it, not directed at them, right? But there are support system in a different way where we would never
They
expect that
know
from our
all
team.
aspects of you.
Right, right. So that's where sometimes that boundary play comes in. And I think there's a space for an emotionally regulated person to still convey, I'm really disappointed that you haven't gotten this done.
Oh, then that seems really mean.
Why is that mean?
So, I mean, maybe that's the thing of like, it's figuring out how to, like, we swing from how to, like, again, we didn't have CEO, like, we didn't have conflict training. And so there's how we want our innate wants to respond. And we're like, nah, that's not professional nor like appropriate. So then the appropriate response then still feels really harsh. And so like we go to like, oh, that's okay. Like we'll just role play again or like this or that. And so maybe that's part of the issue is that like we don't have conflict resolution training on what the appropriate thing is. With my husband, I could I could honestly say to my husband, like, it'd be like, okay, I can't tell him. I'm so sick of like, da da da. I'd be like, no, 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 no. Like, it could be like, hey, it really disappoints me when you don't put your shoes in the basket. I know it feels like a small thing, but like, I feel like I've communicated this multiple times. And when you don't do this, it makes me feel like you don't care. I can have that conversation with my spouse. But at work, for some reason, that feels inappropriate still. It feel like, and would you say that that isn't, how would I communicate the same thing in a professional setting?
Right, because in at home, you're really leveraging the fact that your loved ones don't want you to feel bad,
Right.
right? So we're talking about feelings. In the workplace, it's more of this is the expectation for that this SOP we've created. The expectation is
Right.
you're going to follow it. So the feeling I'm conveying of being angry or disappointed, it isn't
No
necessarily
place for emotions, right?
about me. Right. Like we just, I think
Right.
there is a place.
But
I
it's
coach a
not
lot of
about
folks.
I'm disappointed in you. You're making me feel unheard. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah. You're allowed to say
Well, yeah.
anything. And I would offer that there's a space for some emotional vulnerability as leaders that really takes the power back to us in that situation,
Okay.
right? When
What would
we
that
are,
look like?
that would look like, I'm really disappointed to hear that we haven't implemented this SOP we all agreed upon. I think I need to take a few minutes and then we're going to have a conversation about how to make this better.
Oh my God. Jennylynde, you just made me crawl inside my body. Okay. Is
Oh,
there a softer, kinder
no.
way
Absolutely.
to,
Absolutely.
okay. I'm a fan of
So,
kind candor.
kind. Well, in all fairness, it's funny you bring that up because my kind of motto when I've been leading teams is clear is kind.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to just be nice. I struggle with that word sometimes because it leads us to that place where we're not direct and clear
Mm-hmm.
about the expectations. And then it's unkind because although I've been nice, I haven't actually provided enough structure for people to choose to be successful.
Yeah.
I don't know how that resonates with you.
No, it does. It does.
So I absolutely lean more towards I care about you. You're on my team because I think you're fantastic, right? And I like my favorite motivational interviewing is affirmations because I was on a team for a while that were so spectacular affirmations. They really made me raise the bar. Because sometimes when I was a leader in leadership roles, I was like rah rah leader. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for coming to work today. Right? Like,
You even showed up on time. Yay.
yay! Right? Because sometimes the bar was that low and we just needed everybody to show up to get work done.
Uh-huh.
And that's not an affirmation,
Okay. Yeah, no.
right?
An
It,
expectation. Right.
it's the basic expectation. And so I had to move away from just being positive and putting on the positive face to trying to be more authentic and genuine. And the middle line between that for me is clear as kind. So I do want to be clear because that's the kindest thing I can do for someone. So when I was imagining that and saying that, I was thinking, I am mad. I am mad because this should have happened a week or two ago. And I would really like to swear about it. And I know that that's not appropriate here, right? With, our assistant Jane who isn't following the SOP. So to say I am disappointed and I need a little bit of time to think about how we're gonna get this back on track is allowing some of that emotional, like, hey, because also in that minute, I don't want to talk about how we're going to fix this. If I just found out right now and that person's standing in front of me, I know for my own
You don't
self-regulation.
have the bandwidth to walk
Yeah,
you through
yeah,
fixing it a third time.
correct. I'm going to need to take a break and think about this and take a little bit of processing time. And then I can come back and say, so tell me what the barrier was to you following the SOP that you knew was here.
Okay, can I ask a question that it's okay if you don't know the answer to, though?
Please.
So to me, saying like, I'm going to need a minute and I'll come back to this is going to be damaging to that employee because they're like, oh, I pissed her off. Like like, oh, fuck. And now they're scared of me
Mm,
because
interesting.
I actually got upset, even though I handled it well. Like, the fact that I like needed a minute to cool down still shows weakness in my leadership.
Mm, that's so interesting. I think my theory, my practice is that powerful pauses are powerful and it's always okay. Whether it's, ooh, that's a really good question. And you'll see I do this. I literally put a finger in front of my mouth so I stop talking. Because I know I'm a chatty gal and I would like to give my brain a minute to think about it. So I say, oh, that's such an interesting idea. So what if we, so I will like make myself block my mouth, count to three, and then proceed. And it's not manipulative anyway. I'm trying to give my brain a chance to catch up and get the words in the right order so that I say the things that are respectful, supportive, kind in the moment to anything. So I use a lot of pauses in my coaching. We have some uncomfortable pauses. Sometimes I ask a question and somebody's got to sit with it for a minute, and that's okay. Like not being afraid of the silence with it. And then that extends to, gosh, maybe it's not even I'm disappointed. This caught me off guard. I think I want a few minutes to think about it. And we have a patient coming in. Could we catch up at our next break time, between patients? Like, again, pulling back from the abrasiveness or the emotional sharing, but rather just admitting, like, oh, as a leader, I want to be thoughtful. And you could say that. I've certainly said that before. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
listen, if I'm supposed to be the one in charge of this group, I'm going to be more thoughtful about how I respond. And I need a few minutes to think about that. I don't
Yeah.
want to just
Yeah. Yeah.
blurt my
Yeah,
emotional
it
responses.
doesn't feel punitive. I think that that's where
Right.
like my brain went was like, and maybe that says a lot about my childhood and stuff like that, of like, I'm going to punish you by like putting you in timeout for a minute and we'll circle back and address this when you've thought about your actions, like type of thing. Even though none of that was said, but like the
Right.
original way was just like, oh my gosh.
It's the opposite that's true, right? I'm the mom
Right.
going,
It's like, no, I am
mommy needs
trying.
a timeout.
Mommy needs a timeout.
I'm going to go sit in the bathroom for 5 minutes and then I'll be back and we'll talk about what mom's reaction to this is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, but I also hear you in that depending on, we all have that big bag of life experience that we're carrying around with us. Depending on what yours is, they may very well, in fact, receive it the way you received it. So absolutely finding that thing that feels natural to you, because we all have a little bit different style, even if we were, exactly the same in how we would maybe think something, we're going to say it differently based on our own experiences. So finding that thing that feels good to you, even to take a pause during a conversation, right? Like I said, that's such a good thought. And then I literally, yeah. So as we think about that further, what are the repercussions that we're not thinking of that could be negative here, right? Like, because maybe I've thought of a couple things and I'm like, I'm having feelings that your idea has the
It's a
nugget
dumb
of
idea.
goodness. No, it's got
Wow,
like a
I
nugget
think I
of
could use a
goodness.
lot more pausing in my life.
Yeah, maybe. I
Okay.
find that for me, again, because I like you, we're very passionate, women in positions of power, we do have to manage those feelings differently with others. That's
Can you
fair or
connect
not.
this
That's what we're
back
socialized to.
to your question where you said, is that masking or is that boundaries? So it sounds like we're allowed to have boundaries. And can you talk to me more about having boundaries when you're in that CEO leadership role?
Yes. Um, so when you said some of the things that people might not tell you, you can't be friends with your employees in the same way. It might not be a good idea to be social media friends with someone who reports to you or that you have to withhold judgment on their private life. If you're judgy sometimes, maybe I don't want to see all the fun you had over the weekend because I might have some feelings about that and I don't need to know. So I hold really strong boundaries about both social media and socializing with teams that report to me. I have done it. It's not easy. Sometimes it's really hard to figure out where that boundary is, what I'm comfortable with. I know that there are smaller clinics who, have a family picnic every other weekend. And so that socialization is part of the
The
clinic culture.
culture. Yeah.
Right, which makes perfect sense in that circumstance, um, when it's part of the culture. But I think there is a place to be very careful about how friendly we want to be with people that have to report to us. Because that's
Hmm.
where we get into that feeling of like, oh, mom's mad at me. What did I do wrong? When our culture is much more,
So now how do you connect with your employees? Like, I've, how do you, like, I feel like since like, I would say that at 39 years old, so I've been in practice 15 years, and 3 of my employees been with me for 10 years. And one of them doc, 2 front desk support. So they have seen a very young, immature leader, little hot tempered, or hot headed, impulsive, things like that. And they've seen, also just like not like very like almost, I don't want to say treated them like tools, but like there wasn't conversation about like, how did your daughter's recital go? Like there wasn't, it was just kind of, there wasn't like, how was your weekend? It was like, okay, so, like we only really interacted with work, right? And so they've seen now over the years my evolution to a much more like mature leader, one that would be more likely to be like, I'm going to need a second before I respond to that. Um, and they would kind of laugh and like they would be like, oh my God, she has come so far, type of thing. Um, but now part of our connection is also that like I care about them as people, not tools to grow my business. So, how do I, this is such an autistic question.
No,
How
that's
do
great.
I treat them as human beings that I care about and not tools in a factory to produce revenue for the man?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think it's a line that we're all finding as we move through leadership roles in any industry. That's not even just in healthcare, right? In any industry. And it's the line of, so how was your daughter's recital? Or you mentioned you were traveling to see your dad. How's he doing? Or hey, did your friend make it down for whatever you had planned over the weekend? There's some of that chattiness that happens in the workplace when we are friendly with each other that I think totally appropriate to engage as long as people are willing to share, because some people are going to be like, fine, right? And they don't want to talk about it anymore. And some people are going to want to show you pictures on their phone of the recital dress, right? And all those things, so it's figuring out what our team members need, where they're coming from, what social boundaries they're comfortable with. Um, and I noticed in all that you didn't mention social media because that's where I think sometimes leaders
Well,
can get in trouble.
yeah, so that this was going to be my next question. So, um I don't consciously not follow them, but they do a lot on like Snapchat and I'm not on Snapchat and I'm only on Instagram and I follow a ton of other colleagues on there. So even if I follow them, like I just don't see their stuff. They don't post very often or whatever. Where they post a lot of Snapchat. I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." I'm old school. Snapchat is for like showing inappropriate parts to like I don't get it, whatever. The damn kids these days. So anyway, so I have a B2B personal brand. Like I have a personal brand for healthcare providers to talk about like how to leverage online, how to, grow into a better leader, how to clean up systems, how to raise prices, all that stuff. But then also part of the personal brand is like I show like me in Nashville and this and that. And they do follow me. It'd be weird. It'd be very weird. We're only a team of 9 people if I blocked them from viewing
No.
me.
Well, but
So
you're
how does
not
that
talking
work
about
the
your
reverse
personal.
way? Yeah, like how
Yeah.
much do yeah.
So, all the things you shared though, you're talking about your social media presence is B2B for your
Yep.
business.
Yep.
Okay. So you're not out there posting things about your dog's birthday party, right? You're
I
you're
might.
posting. But if it's related to your business, right? Like, oh, look, today my husband
No,
brought the
there's a
dog by
ton
the
of personal stuff on there. No, there's a ton of personal stuff on there.
okay. Um, but it's B2B by nature?
Well, I mean, the nature of a personal brand in 2026 is going to not be just like people aren't following a business, they're following a person. So like the nature, when I talk to healthcare providers about personal brand, the goal is like 80-20. 80% is directly related to your niche. And, but my niche is talking about burnout. So like my niche is talking about my story of being burnt out in practice. And so like, you know, my employees were just like, hello, like I worked for that clinic during that time you're talking about and things like that. It's a lot of vulnerability. There's a lot of vulnerability in what I am helping doctors solve. There's vulnerability in my story that my employees were a part of that story. And so it's just like their boundaries just out the window. Like I have no idea how to even navigate that.
No, I think the piece that's incumbent on the leader in any situation is to not overstep into our team members' personal socializing or social media. So an employee deciding to follow you makes perfect sense to me. And you were taking me back to one of your recent previous guests where I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I really need to wrap my brain around that, because that was eye-opening for me to listen to, you guys have that conversation, think there is a place for some personal sharing in our B2B as we're building our brand. Stellar. However, as a leader, again, we need to make sure that we're not ever portraying judgment on our teammates for their personal lives. Right? You have every right to expect that they follow an SOP that was written and agreed upon by all properly in the workplace. We don't get to have thoughts and feelings about how they choose to celebrate their daughter's second birthday or their dog's birthday
Oh,
or
okay.
someone's
I can do
death.
that. That's no problem.
Or, right, exactly. So that's where often as the leader, we need to be careful about, should we really be following them? Probably not, unless they are
Not if
also
you can't handle it.
right. If you're going to be tempted to say something other than
Well,
just a
so I
quick
think
like,
this is something where it's like I think that there's a lot of people who are probably hearing like, what? This is like that's ridiculous. Like my employees would think it's weird if I didn't comment on their daughter's second birthday and things like that. And that also may be true, but
for their culture.
I think what you've said and kind of what I've learned firsthand too is like you can't ever be 50-50 friends. A friend, a true friend, nobody is holding the power. And I had an employee a while ago that I had a very personal nothing nothing to do with work. A very personal issue that happened where I felt disappointed. I felt slighted. I didn't feel like she focused on me as a person. And I love her and like we're friends. And through therapy and talking to my husband, realized like I never get to vocalize that to her because there is no appropriate way. Like you can't just sit down and be like, hey, this has nothing to do with work. Like just friend to friend, this is how I felt. You don't ever get to remove that hat. You're always in a position where you can pass judge, like your judgment can mean they don't have a job and their job is their livelihood. And so I think that that's kind of what you're saying, and definitely a lesson that I learned where it's like you can think you're friends, but you're their boss and you're the one that is responsible for putting food on their table, and they will not forget that. Like, and it's a weird power dynamic that you have to respect and handle appropriately.
Yes, yes, you are spot on again. I do, again, I understand that there are especially smaller practices, when you're thinking less than 10 people like yours, it does make sense that an expectation in that culture could be, well, we are Facebook friends, right? Um, but you really touched on the piece that is we're responsible for their livelihood. And even if they can forget about it for a minute, should we? Right? What does that feel like when someone comes back with a thought that they're just thinking they're making a comment, but it ends up sounding like a judgment to the person receiving it. And then they think, oh my gosh, like the person who signed my paychecks just thought that about my weekend, or, my trip to Cabo or whatever, there's just, so absolutely, when you're the one with the power in the power dynamic, you have to really retain awareness of that. I think it gets back to that
Right.
self-awareness piece
So then how
as a
do I
leader.
make them feel that they're connected to me on a human level, that I like more than just like, how was your weekend? Yeah, this weather's crazy. Like, how do I, if it's not through like talking to them like I would, you know, with a friend, like,
Yeah.
how do I make them feel cared about? Because I think that's so important. It's so
Yeah.
important in a small team thing that like my boss genuinely cares about me.
So
And
I,
especially because my story is like, I don't know that I actually did in the beginning.
right.
Like, like I think 20 something year old Lauren only cared about what 20 something year old Lauren wanted. It was like, do the job and I will pay you. That's what a job is. You do, like, and so it's like, I love that. But I just, yeah, it's still just like finding like, okay, but that we don't want to be that. That's unprofessional. And it's like, all right, where is that sweet spot?
So you mentioned speaking to them like friends. I think you can speak to them like friends. We can be friendly at work. Absolutely. How was your daughter's recital is a perfectly reasonable question. If they talked about their daughter's recital in front of you, or even if they hadn't and you remembered it was coming up, I think that there's 100% a space for those friendly feelings. It's the making sure that we don't overshare our own personal struggles. We don't want to put that on somebody, right? That's why we have our therapies, our therapy friends, and that's why we have other places in our life, hopefully peer groups. There's lots of even virtual peer groups now where we can go and, vent about our business to other chiropractors that are nowhere near to us
Right.
geographically, even if we don't want to like
There's,
share it.
there's Facebook groups. Oh yeah.
There's groups. So there's places to get support for things, and recognizing that the people who report to us that we pay probably shouldn't be the first place we go to for that. So that's where that boundary piece comes into place, right? Of because I'm going to hold that self-awareness that I have the power in this situation, I'm going to be extra careful to not come off sounding judgy, even if they're sharing something and I think, what in heaven's name were you thinking? Like, I don't get to do that. I don't get to make a face. I don't get to have the judgment because it's not my place as their boss when they're sharing a social thing unrelated to work. I can just be like, oh, so interesting. Thanks for telling me. Glad you felt comfortable sharing. Whatever it is, that's still friendly, right? But it's not, we're not going to lean on them as our friend in the same way because of what exactly how you phrased it, that when you're the one that holds the power in the relationship, it can never be straight 50-50. But I don't think we have to not be friendly.
Right, right. So we've talked a lot about like these soft leadership skills. Is that what you'd call this?
Yeah.
Soft leadership skills? Okay. Um, how does actually doing the work here translate into business growth though? Like for somebody who's like, okay, is this really like a drum circle? Like we're running businesses here. Like how have these soft skills in leadership, like where's the proof in the pudding? Because I'm sure you have it of like, oh no, this actually improves employee retention. What like where's we
Hmm.
need the highlight reel here because
Okay.
this sounds like a lot of work.
So, um, I it's a change in how we approach the work. I don't think once we get comfortable with it that it's a lot of work or more work. It's just a little bit different perspective we have when we're approaching it. And absolutely, you touch on the biggest thing, which is employee retention, huge. And then finding new employees. When you have employees that stay and that stay for a long time, and then they talk to their friends in similar roles, you'll get applications and you'll have like a file of applications for people who are and I look down like it's in a drawer because for a while I'm old enough to where I actually had paper applications in a drawer. I know we don't do that anymore, but
I've
like
literally had people mail or drop off applications. And as you were saying that, I was like, Where is that file? I hope that, because I just like hand them to my front desk. I'm like, put this somewhere in case we need
Somewhere,
it. And I'm like, I wonder where that
right?
is.
And now
They're
it
like
might be
shredding it. They're like, you don't need this.
yeah, they're like, I worked with them 5 years ago. You can't hire this person. I'm sorry. I lost it. So sometimes it's like a paper file, right? But sometimes it's a file on our computer. People reach out and say, hey, if you're ever looking, my friend works for you and they love their job. I'd love to work for you. And so you start just organically getting word of mouth for both employees and frankly for clients, because regardless of what client you have, when somebody loves their job, they're going to go out on the weekends, they're going to talk about how they love their job and they love their boss. And then people are going to think the next time they need a service like yours, oh, who is that doctor again? What mom was it at the baseball field that loves their job so much? I should figure out who that was, because now I'm going to go look up my friend on Facebook and see where she works. Then I'm going to call and make my appointment there because she loves her job and not everybody does.
Yep.
So
Okay.
and
The
frankly,
employee retention.
employee retention. And
What about employee productivity? Does it improve? Does that improve? Are they happier?
I
No, not necessarily.
I think it does.
Okay.
No, no, I think it does, because when people are invested in their workplace and they feel like their workplace cares about them, they're going to be more likely to want the workplace to succeed. And so then you have less of that. They're not following the SOP for 2 weeks and they're not even bothering to tell you why. Because maybe they're not following the SOP for a really good reason, right? But they don't feel comfortable enough in coming up to you and saying, hey, I know we all agreed to this, but we missed this barrier and it's been awful and we need to stop and rethink this. And you want employees who feel empowered to do that. So having a bit of that emotional comfort that it's safe here for me to share is what we're trying to build. Not necessarily that it's friends and we're all family. I get a little twitchy when people say their workplace is family, because I have a family and I have a workplace and they're not the same. I've worked in places with family members from my home and it's tough because it's not this. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not the
Yeah.
same.
Anybody
So
who has their mother-in-law working at the front desk is like, or sister-in-law working at the front desk is like, not the same. Not the same.
not the same. And so that's where I think when we've had that bit of weird friction, we go, oh, yeah, work is not family, right? We
Right.
can be friendly with
Nor
each
do we
other,
want it to be. No.
but we're not trying to be family here. But again, we do want a friendly workplace. We want a place that feels emotionally safe to be vulnerable, whether the vulnerability is, listen, I'm really struggling and I may need some help because I'm not sure if we're going to, marriage counseling, if we're going towards divorce. So I just need some patience and safety in the workplace. I need work to stay the same. But you'd want a team member who's comfortable coming to you and saying that,
Yeah. Oh,
right?
100%.
Because then you could
Yeah.
support them through it. You could help them in whatever way, maintaining their confidentiality that you could to make the workplace a little easier for them. So it's more about healthcare is so ready, all aspects of healthcare, I think, to really be one way or the other with the pendulum on culture, right? Either it's like culture doesn't matter here, or like, oh, but we're all here to be best friends. And there is a middle line, because culture absolutely matters in the workplace. And those expectations that we can be emotionally vulnerable with each other, or we can share a little bit of our personal lives without judgment. And there's still a boundary that we as the leader need to maintain. So I think not disregarding culture, and also wanting to shore up where we feel comfortable as the leader. And this is entirely personal, right? Every single practice could be entirely different with what a leader decides is the boundary I want. Because like I said, some places have family picnics every other weekend and it goes great. And they also have great employee retention, and they'd probably speak similarly to what I have about how their employees feel comfortable bringing up a problem. And then it gets addressed before it's a drain on time or finances, or it's chase somebody out of their role, which is just the most devastating piece, right? When we lose somebody that we know is great at their role because of a culture piece, right? So we do have to attend to intentionally, what do we want it to look like here? And then how do I want to make that happen? And that's where I think sometimes those peer groups can be so helpful. I think if people aren't involved in some kind of peer group, and again, maybe it's not your local one because you don't want to air your dirty laundry with the 4 other clinics, depending on how big your town is, right, that are all going to hear all that. But there are enough national, international groups, heck, for different things that you can find somebody who can
You got to
totally
vent
understand
somewhere else. Yep.
and vent there. And then, frankly, I think, mentors and coaches and therapists are all great places for us as well to hammer out exactly what does that look like? Or, oh, that didn't feel like what I thought it was going to feel like. How do I recover that back to where I want it to be? Because it's a process. We're all humans working with humans. It's never going to be perfect.
Yeah, I can't really imagine somebody not having a like leadership focused therapist or like mentor if you're a private practice owner. Like it's just like, just to kind of come full circle to where we started of like your background, where it was like hospital executive leadership, like they're given so much. I mean, that's a whole degree. Like you have to go get an entire degree to like go to that level of admin and things like that. And so it's just like there's so much support and we're just out here just like willy-nilly wondering why we can't keep employees or why our clinic is stagnating. So, okay, so kind of your final thought here. We've talked about kind candor. We are clear as kind. We've talked about powerful pauses. Um, we've talked about boundaries. We've talked about a lot. Is there one kind of like final thing that like knowing healthcare providers, we do not have leadership training. Like if you were like, what would be the final note of your keynote to us here, where it's like, you need to be aware of this and spend time thinking about this. Is it will get in the way of you becoming the CEO your business needs?
Mm,
Powerful pause.
powerful. Yes. Yes. As I collect my thoughts, because it is a really good question. There's always room for improvement. There's all, there's,
Man, Jennylynde,
no, no,
I
no.
don't
Okay.
want to keep improving.
Okay.
I agree with you.
Unfortunately,
I
so
agree,
here's
but
the thing. So I coached
yeah,
synchronized swimming for 10 years. So
yeah,
nobody's perfect, right? Like we all
yeah.
got room for improvement because they never get tens. And, but it kind of became the running joke of that's the perfect sport for me to coach because there's always room for improvement because I'm always saying we should want to be in a growth mindset. We should want, if we can still change, we're not dead yet. Right? And that's vertical and ventilated, right? Let's go. So I genuinely believe if we haven't thought about how we want to lead, there's a million and one different resources out there. I could send you a 3-page list about different leadership resources that are out there. And what's most important is what you said about taking the time to sit with it and reflect and think, what do I want this to look like? And then potentially seeking out a resource that will support you in making something happen if you don't already have that knowledge through your own experiences. Because I think there's also a piece where we have a lot of knowledge based on our own experiences. And when we stop and think about it and go, oh yeah, the way that happened, I don't ever want to lead like that. Right? Like I was a team member and that was terrible. And I don't want to be like that. Right? Even those pieces help us form how we want to be as a leader moving forward. And then not being afraid of that idea that we have to keep striving for more knowledge about it, for more opportunities to learn and refine. And maybe it's just a small, tiny refinement. Maybe overall, you're going to listen to all this and think, well, I'm really on track. Great. Right? But
Cool.
part of
Yeah.
self-awareness is we go, oh, and
And
there's
that could be
probably
better.
something I could do better. And what is that?
Always. Yes.
Right? Or
Always.
who do I ask? How do I figure it out? Because sometimes the vulnerability piece is I need to go to my front line and I need to say, hey, you're gonna get a survey in your email. It's anonymous, but I really want some feedback because I want to know what I can do better as a leader. Like opening yourself up to that feedback.
Yikes. If I were an
Really?
employer, I'd be like, anonymous my ass.
No, Google can make anything anonymous. Now a Google form can be anonymous and I really find that okay, here I'm going to geek out on the data. I find that data so exciting to me because I've been doing this a long time. And so I think I know what I'm doing. And most of the time, maybe I'm right, but sometimes I'm totally wrong. So I love to get a little bit of feedback and think, oh, I can fix that. Like it gives me goosebumps to think somebody's going to come to me with a piece of feedback and it's an easy fix. It's a small thing and it's going to make this huge impact on their willingness to continue to work with me. And now we're back to, employee longevity and them talking about how they love their job because I was willing to say like, hey, tell me what I can do better to support you to be successful in your job.
Damn. All right, fine. Okay. Final question. Where can people find more of your trainings? You talking on this, like, where can people connect with you more?
Thank you. Yeah, so it's couragecoaching.us because there is a Courage Coaching in the UK. So couragecoaching.us is the website. And it's got different coaching packages on there if people are interested. It's got some links to introductions about I do have a 6-module leadership course that I pulled together for like groups of leaders in workplaces because I've had that experience of helping people get to that wonderful state of flow. We're all rowing in the same direction. Because if the leaders aren't doing it, we can't expect the staff to do it, right? So couragecoaching.us is where you can find me. And I will, and Jennylynde at couragecoaching.us is the email for any other information.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for this reminder on mindset, like that we can do this as leaders and CEOs in healthcare. We can do this. We have signed up for this, and it doesn't have to always be hard. Practice makes perfect.
No.
It may feel messy in between as we're growing, but it's not always hard. It will become the new normal. It's much easier for me to not lose my shit on employees now than it was. Like, it's very natural now. So thank you so much for the advice that you gave today. We'll have your website below so people can connect with you. She Slayers, as always, I appreciate you continuing to show up every single week and doing the work in your relationships at home, doing the work in your relationships with your employees, with your spreadsheets, like whatever, with your personal brand. Like we are all growth minded here. And so we can do hard things. So until next week, bye.